Ladies and gentlemen, awareness makes you dangerous because it dismantles the illusion. It strips the comfort from false narratives and exposes what was never meant to be seen. When you become aware, truly aware, you stop being a follower. You stop nodding at the lies you were taught to accept. You begin to question everything: the rules, the systems, the smiles that hide agendas. And the moment you start asking why, you become a threat. See, most people walk through life half-assed, asleep, numb, distracted, entertained, trained to obey without thought, to conform without understanding. They're kept busy enough not to notice the strings, but not you. You noticed, you saw the strings, you realized the game was never fair, and that you weren't meant to win unless you played it their way. That kind of clarity, that rattles them, because awareness spreads. It's contagious. When one person wakes up, others start to stir, and those in control. They don't want a world of thinkers. They want consumers, puppets, shadows, but a fully aware mind that can't be manipulated, that can't be bought. You began to see beyond appearances. You understood that power isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers through influence, through quiet decisions in boardrooms, through narratives carefully planted in headlines. You learned that everything has a purpose, and sometimes that purpose is to keep you blind. Your awareness began to separate you. You felt it. In conversations, you noticed the shift. When you spoke truth, people got uncomfortable. When you didn't laugh at the lie, they called you bitter. When you questioned the story, they called you paranoid. But that's the price of awareness. They'll call you crazy before they call you right. Because admitting you're right means admitting they've been asleep, and no one wants to confess that they've been living in the dark while you were holding the match. You started seeing patterns in chaos. You noticed how often the same tricks were used to keep people divided, scared, distracted. You saw how fear was sold like a product, how control was packaged as protection. You realized that those who shout the loudest about truth are often the ones hiding the most. And in that realization, you became dangerous. Because once you know the truth, you don't need permission to walk in it. Your mind became a weapon, not because it attacked, but because it refused to be conquered. You didn't just learn facts, you learned why the facts were hidden. You didn't just wake up, you remembered who you were before they told you who to be. You became the glitch in the system, the question mark in their script, the quiet resistance that couldn't be silenced. They're not afraid of your voice, they're afraid of your vision. Because your vision sees past the smoke, past the distraction, past the illusion of freedom. You don't fall for the surface anymore. You read between the lines. You hear what's not being said. You notice what most ignore, and that kind of awareness, it doesn't go away. Once your eyes open, they don't shut again. Your silence was never weakness. It was preparation. The world often misjudges those who don't speak loud, those who don't constantly react, those who observe instead of perform. But silence is not absence. It's presence in its most focused form. It's the space where strength is built layer by layer without an audience. In your quiet, you were watching. You were absorbing. You were calculating moves while others were wasting energy trying to be seen. They mistook your silence for uncertainty, your stillness for fear. But stillness is not surrender, it's discipline. In a noisy world that rewards loudness, your silence made them uncomfortable. Because silence can't be read easily. It doesn't give away its intentions. It doesn't feed the ego of those who need reactions to feel powerful. And when you refused to engage on their terms, when you stayed quiet while chaos swirled around you, you disrupted their control. That unnerved them because your silence wasn't passive. It was a boundary, a decision, a tool. While they talked to hear themselves, you were listening for truth. While they moved quickly to look important, you were waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, you moved with precision, not panic. There's power in knowing when not to speak, in letting others reveal themselves while you conserve your energy. You learned that storms don't last, but what's built in silence does. Your silence wasn't about weakness. It was about refusing to waste your strength on the wrong battles. While they wanted you to respond emotionally, you chose to respond strategically. Every moment you stayed silent was a moment you stayed in control. And that control, that's what they couldn't handle. They wanted you to crack, to shout, to over-explain, because that would make you predictable. That would give them something to use against you. But you didn't flinch. You didn't entertain the bait, you let them underestimate you, and in doing so, you turned the tables. What they didn't see was that your silence was your sharpening. You were building endurance, you were aligning with purpose. You were creating space between who they thought you were and who you were becoming. People often mistake visibility for power, but real power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't scream, it doesn't compete. It waits, it prepares, it studies the room, the energy, the motives. And when it finally speaks, it doesn't need to repeat itself. That's the kind of silence you carried, the kind that grows roots, the kind that sets foundations beneath the surface, ready to rise when the time is right. They didn't see the preparation because they weren't meant to. They only saw the outside, the quiet, the calm, the stillness. But under that calm was a storm, a quiet buildup of resilience, clarity, and intention. You didn't need applause. You didn't need approval. You were building in silence what would shake the ground when revealed. They fear your vision more than your voice because your voice can be silenced. But your vision creates momentum they can't control. A voice is sound. It rises, it echoes, and it fades. But vision builds. Vision sees beyond the now, beyond what's convenient, beyond what they want you to focus on. Vision pulls back the curtain on what's really happening. It doesn't just speak against the system. It imagines something that exists without it, and that terrifies them, because as long as you're only speaking, they can ignore you. But once you start seeing and acting on what you see, you become unstoppable. They're not threatened by your opinions. They've heard those before. They're threatened by what you imagine, what you visualize, what you're bold enough to believe can exist. Because vision rewrites the blueprint. It challenges the foundation. It creates alternatives. You don't just see the problem. You see the manipulation behind it. You don't just speak about pain. You see the healing and transformation possible beyond it. You don't just react. You redesign. That's what they fear. They fear your ability to see beyond their box, to walk past the limits they spent years creating. Vision doesn't just guide you. It infects others. It awakens something in those who forgot how to dream, and once people see what's possible through your eyes, they start questioning what they've been settling for. That's the real threat. Your vision isn't just personal, it's contagious. It gives permission. It breathes life into minds that were trained to accept less. That's why they try to discredit you, distract you, silence you, because they know if your vision spreads, the systems they built start to crumble from the inside. You didn't just wake up with this vision, you earned it. You paid for it in silence, in isolation, in watching the world twist reality into something it was never meant to be. You saw things others ignored. You watched patterns, you questioned timing, you connected what no one else noticed. Your vision sharpened through disappointment, through being told to stay in line, through having doors slammed in your face. But each moment added clarity. Each rejection made the vision louder, more defined. And now that you see, you can't unsee. That's what haunts them. That's what keeps them up at night. They can handle resistance. They're prepared for that, but they don't know what to do with clarity, with someone who moves with purpose instead of noise, with someone who sees 10 steps ahead while they're still playing checkers. Your vision isn't limited by what is, it's fueled by what could be, and that kind of thinking, that changes everything, that shakes power structures, that dismantles control built on distraction. When you see through the fog, you can no longer be led by it. You lead others out of it. You become the one thing they never wanted you to become. A mirror, a guide, a threat to the comfortable lies they've wrapped the world in. They fear your vision more than your voice because your voice can be debated, argued with, dismissed, or manipulated, but your vision cannot be stopped once it takes root. Vision is deeper than words. It's the quiet force behind your actions, the reason behind your discipline, the fire that keeps you moving when everything else tells you to quit. Your voice may shake rooms, but your vision reshapes the future. And that's what terrifies them. They fear what you're building in silence. They fear what you see that they hoped would remain hidden, because your vision exposes the cracks they painted over. It shines a light on systems they swore were flawless. It calls out the lies they spent years normalizing. Your vision is a threat because it doesn't accept what is. It questions it. It dares to imagine more. It's not satisfied with survival. It's not interested in playing small. You've seen too much to go back now. You've tasted truth, and it changed the way you move. You don't speak just to speak. You speak with direction. You don't act out of impulse. You act with precision. Because your vision gave you something most people don't have: clarity. And that clarity makes people uncomfortable. It exposes confusion. It cuts through noise. It doesn't follow trends, and it's not for sale. When you walk with vision, you become difficult to control. You're not swayed by public opinion. You don't need validation to know you're right. You don't need applause to keep moving. Vision gives you a focus that makes you untouchable. They can't distract you with cheap praise or slow you down with petty attacks. You see through the tactics. You know what they're trying to do. They want you reactive. They want you emotional, but you've outgrown that. Your vision moved you beyond that, and now they can't box you in. They can't predict you, and the more unpredictable you are, the more dangerous you become. They underestimated how far you could see. They assumed you were just passionate, just loud, just another voice trying to be heard. But you weren't trying to be heard. You were trying to be clear. You were trying to get out what was already alive inside you. You didn't just stumble upon your vision. It called you. It kept you awake at night. It whispered when the world got quiet, and the more you listened, the more it shaped you. You stopped moving like everyone else. You stopped needing what everyone else needed, because you had something greater than approval. You had direction. You had purpose. And now, the fear they carry isn't about your ideas. It's about your potential. They don't fear what you've done. They fear what you haven't done yet. They fear the impact of your vision fully realized. They fear the moment it stops being a dream and starts becoming a movement, because they know once it begins, there's no stopping it.